And I am now recording on ours as well, just so you all know. Oh, it looks like we are getting some attendees already entering. Excellent, welcome. And Patrick, I will throw the conch back over to you.
Do I need to accept the attendees, or
They automatically enter now.
automatically enter now? Okay, perfect, good. Welcome to the webinar, everybody. We're just going to take a couple minutes. There looks like there's still people logging on, so let's just take a couple of minutes in order to get everybody the chance to log on, and then we'll get started. Looking comfortable there, Tom.
I was just thinking,
Yeah, it was an early start.
he needs a beer.
Okay, I haven't seen the participants number go up, or the attendees number go up, for a couple of minutes. We're going to give it another minute or two, and then we'll get started.
Yeah.
So, Ben, I've got a question here from one of the attendees asking if we're only able to see the panelists. Are you seeing that chat as well?
Yes, so in this meeting, it is a webinar function, and so only able to see the panelists. You will be able to hear the questions as they come in when the attendees are unmuted to speak.
Yeah.
We'll get into that when we do the rules.
Okay. So Heidi, that's the answer. When individuals are speaking, as we get through the original introductions and or the initial introductions, when the participants have the opportunity to ask their questions, they will be visible to everyone as well. Okay, another attendee. We'll just give it one more minute, and then we'll get started. Okay, Ben, do you want to pull up the first slide, and we'll get this public information meeting started. Thank you, everybody, for joining. The first thing we want to do is just go over the agenda. We are hosting this public information meeting on behalf of MountainSide Quarries Group regarding the soil removal permit application for the quarry at 40251 Quadling Road. And yes, Heidi, we will be going over all the rules. I just saw your question, and be letting you all know how you can participate as we move forward. Absolutely. So first of all, I want to introduce my colleague Benjamin Neff, and myself, Patrick Giesbrecht. We're here on behalf of Giesbrecht and Company, who is here on behalf of MountainSide, the MountainSide Quarry Group.
Yeah, we will be the moderators for this evening, and will assist in communication on both sides to ensure that this process runs smoothly.
So the first thing I want to do is just if you have a look at our agenda, I'll give you a quick overview of the meeting itself. Next, we'll go over to answer your question, Heidi, we'll be looking at the meeting and engagement rules, how this is going to work tonight, so everybody gets their fair chance to speak and gets the answers that we're looking for. Then we'll be introducing the panelists. We have quite a list of qualified professionals on the webinar tonight, so you'll have an opportunity to interact with them. Then the engineer of record, or the engineer responsible for the project, will be speaking to the actual application and go over pertinent information as it relates to the quarry itself. Then we'll go over the written questions that we received from a number of you ahead of time. Thank you for those. We will go over those, we'll list those questions, or I will share the questions, and the related qualified professional will speak to those. And then lastly, and by all means, this will be the most time in the evening, will be the last event, or the last item on the agenda, which is you, the public, having the opportunity to ask your questions of the panel. So we're here to moderate this. We're here to make sure that everyone gets a fair shake, and make sure that that the rules are followed and time is respected, and so forth. And just basically to manage a really fulsome and thorough event, which hopefully will get the correct information to the correct people as we hear your questions. Okay, so the next thing, just by way of let's go back to the overview, Ben, if you wouldn't mind. So the purpose of this meeting, I want to be really clear that we set correct expectations and parameters for the evening. So of course, the purpose of this meeting is to address questions related specifically to the soil removal permit that MountainSide has applied for from the city of Abbotsford. I want to just make note that this meeting is not an information meeting about the provincial permit, or whether it was related to the mining aspect or to the wildlife permit. We understand there may be questions related to that where it overlaps with the soil removal application. We just want to be clear that those public information meetings were already accommodated and happened approximately over the last probably 2 years, most recently just over a year ago. And so just want to make sure everyone understands the scope of this information meeting tonight. Having said that, please ask your questions, and we'll deal with them as best we can within those parameters. We got some questions from some of you that were directed to the city of Abbotsford. And so we've got 3 representatives from the city of Abbotsford on the webinar tonight. We have forwarded those, or made sure, in some cases they were copied. We made sure that the city of Abbotsford has those questions. We are not here to speak for them. And so our understanding is that they will be dealing with those in due course directly with the questionnaires. And we, from our side, we won't be speaking to them in this meeting. Let's see. So even though representatives from the city of Abbotsford are here and observing this meeting, this isn't the venue for addressing city officials or city staff. That opportunity will come later in the process. This meeting is for conveying information from the proponent to the public that are not involved with the city process. So let's go over the meeting rules and expectations. Obviously, our goal here is to run a respectful and civil event We understand that people will have differing opinions about what should happen. You will have questions that you may feel deserve a more lengthy answer. Who knows? We'll have our reasons why we're happy with the process or aren't. However, we will. I believe we can all agree to be civil, to keep our tone appropriate, and of course, as you'll see in the second bullet there, or the third, if that just continues, if the tone is uncivil and there are comments being made that we feel are inappropriate, we will remind the speaker of that, and then if they don't listen, they will be muted in this process. So we will cycle through the questionnaires, allowing multiple opportunities per person as time allows. So what we want to do is we want to give everybody a chance to ask their questions first, get through the list, and then if there's more questions and there's time allowed, then we can come back to people who have more questions. Speakers will be allotted 4 minutes for their question and up to 1 minute for a follow-up question. You can ask more than one question during that 4 minutes. I will just say that obviously the more time you take asking your questions, for each question, the less questions that you'll get to ask. And I am going to follow that up, the 4 minutes. We have quite a number of people that are interested in speaking to this, and we want to make sure we allow the appropriate time for the qualified professionals to answer those questions. So we do need to make sure that everyone, again, like I said earlier, everyone gets their fair time at the microphone to ask their question. We're going to ask that you use the raise hand function, which is on the bottom of your screen. And then we will bring you in when we get to that part of the meeting. So what I am going to do is, some people may have logged on via phone. So periodically I am going to, we'll unmute the phone lines and we'll just ask if there's anybody there that wants to speak, and then we'll cue you in. So we'll make sure that no one gets missed. There is Ben, do the people attending, do they also have access to the chat? Yeah, that's right. We just got a message from Heidi. So for whatever reason, if you don't feel we're seeing your raised hand, or you haven't got our attention one way or the other, please message us within this app, and Ben and I will make sure that you have your chance to ask your question. The speakers will introduce themselves. We need you to provide your address before you ask questions, please. And then again, just to reiterate, the questioners will be allowed one follow-up question after the panelist has responded. If they have additional follow-up questions, those can be brought up after all interested persons have asked questions. The other thing that may happen tonight is you guys may ask questions that we're not prepared, or we hadn't thought of, that we may not be able to answer verbally on this webinar, in which case your question will be noted and the appropriate qualified professional will prepare an answer and we will get back to you. As well, we have a time window after this webinar where you'll also be able to submit questions in writing, which will then be answered and will be included in the engagement report that goes back to the City of Abbotsford staff. Ben, have I missed anything there?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay.
So the panelists for this evening, we have Brent Palmer, who's the mines manager, Kelly Kerr, the civil engineer and project manager, Ken Armstrong, the blasting contractor, David Neal, the hydrogeological engineer, and we had a little bit of technical errors. I haven't seen them come back on the line, so I'm going to go investigate that and to make sure they get back in, but we'll keep going. We have Ian White, one of our environmental consultants, Tom Plath, another environmental consultant, John Richmond, he is a rock engineer, he's on the line, and James Weatherall, he unfortunately had a family emergency just before the call and is unable to join us. However, again, if we have questions that are directed towards these individuals, we'll make sure that they respond in writing.
And my understanding is that James Weatherall and John Richmond conferred before this, because I guess there was some notice on James' part with that family emergency. And so John will field any and all questions related to geotechnical. And if there's anything that we can't deal with here, then James will be sent those questions and we'll get the appropriate answer to the attendee.
All right. And so without further ado, we would like to introduce Kelly Kerr, the civil engineer, who will give an overview of the project.
All right, I'm going to try and get this queued up. Everybody see that?
Nope, you're not sharing yet.
Oh, hang on. Still can't see it?
No.
Now, can you see it?
There we go.
Got it.
All right, thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is Kelly Kerr and I am with Wedler Engineering. I am the civil engineer for this project. Again, just to reiterate, we're here for 40251 Quadling Road. It's the quarry. We are working through the soil removal permit application process, and the public information meeting is one of the tasks that we have to fulfill. So we're here tonight to answer your questions. I'm going to do a brief PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll turn it back to Patrick. He'll have a few more words to say, and then we'll get into the answering the questions. So what we're looking at here is an aerial photo over top of the site. The bold green line that you see is the property boundaries. The property is approximately 15.5 acres in size. You've got Quadling Road that runs down the east side. North is up the page. The property ranges in elevation from 150 meters on the northwest corner, and it gets down to 10 meters approximately along Quadling Road. You have the Borough Town Pump Station southeast of the site for reference, and highway number 1 is further out to the east. Patrick has touched base on some of these items, but I just want to go over it again. MountainSide has secured the necessary provincial quarry and wildlife permits. We spent a lot of time preparing reports, plans to secure those approvals. We also have a temporary soils removal permit in place from the city of Abbotsford for the removal of approximately 100,000 cubic meters of rock, and that's for safety reasons, and I'll get into that a little bit later. MountainSide has approval to remove 495,000 cubic meters of rock, and the lifespan of the quarry is expected to run 7 years. The hours of operation will be from 7 a.m. through 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that meets the city's noise bylaw. Prior to blasting, notices will be provided to all residents in the area 24 hours in advance. And at the end of the project, the site will be reclaimed in accordance with the Health, Safety, and Reclamation Code of British Columbia. So this next plan, again, this is a plan view looking down on the site. This is the rock fall mitigation berm that you see in bold where my cursor is, that runs along the edge of Quadling Road. And it's adjacent to Quadling Road in this portion because the face of the pit is closest to the road in this location. And the purpose of the berm is to stop rolling rock from getting onto the road and being a public hazard. As the face of the pit pulls away from the road, the berm goes to inside the property and is inside the fence line. Wish to also point out that there are 2 points of access into the site. You've got your primary access in the middle here, and you have a secondary access up in the northeast corner. Trucks will enter into the primary access, so trucks heading northbound will make a left turn into the site. The southbound vehicles, there will be adequate sight distance for the trucks to see any vehicles coming down. There's no obstructions in the area. This is over 200 meters in length, so sight lines are excellent. The trucks will pull left into the site. They'll be loaded with processed material, and processed material is just the mined material that's broken down into smaller pieces and is used for the purpose of constructing roads, concrete, buildings, things like that. The trucks are loaded up. They are then weighed. They then exit the site through the primary access again, and this is now a right turn out, and the sight line is to the left, and that's the vehicles again heading southbound down Quadling Road, and we have excellent visibility there again. Sight lines are not an issue. The trucks then leave the site. This next slide shows, as part of the temporary measures, the emergency works, is an access road. This is to get the equipment up to the top. This also acts as a catchment. When it's fully built out, would also be a catchment containment area for rock that does fall down. The contractor will be constructing this from the top down. What you're seeing out there right now is the contractors have done scaling. They've removed loose material. They have started to do some blasting, minor blasting, and materials being removed, but they are starting from the top and they're working their way down. And again, this is all part of the temporary works. So this work, the temporary berm, or this rockfall mitigation berm, and this access road are part of the temporary works that's ongoing right now. So before I get to the next slide, you see these lines that are running east to west or north to south. These represent cross-section lines. Basically, if you envision a piece of pie being cut and being opened up, and if you were to look at the side of the piece of pie, you'd see all the pieces of the sandwich, if you will. That's what this next slide shows. This line here is the existing elevator or existing ground. And then when the mining activity takes place and when it's all said and done, that seesaw look that you see there, that is the benches that are produced from the mining activity. So again, they start from the top and they work their way down, top to bottom. This next slide is a proximity slide to show, this is from the center of the pit to a couple of the properties in the area, as well as the flood box for the Borrowtown pump station. It's 251 meters from the pit to the Borrowtown pump station flood box. It's about 322 meters to the property at 40444 Quadling Road. And it's 368 meters to the property at 40460 North Parallel Road, just to give you an idea how close we are to the various properties in the area.
Kelly, quick question for her.
Yep.
Back to the, did you want to point out the, on that, the profile that you showed, the side profile? Yeah, that one there. Do you want to speak to the planting that'll happen there as a part
Yes.
of it?
Yes, thank you, Patrick. So as part of the decommissioning of the pit, so at the end of the 7 years, there will be material that will be placed in each of these elbows of these benches that will support plant life. So trees and shrubs and various native species will be planted to reestablish the area back to a native setting. So this slide is a publication that the city of Abbotsford has. It identifies area in Abbotsford that are eligible for soil removal. And this site, the Quadling pit that we're talking about tonight, is located in this area here and is within one of the areas identified as eligible for soil removal. This slide shows the truck route. So the trucks will exit highway number 1 at the number 3 road exit, get onto North Parallel Road, head northbound up to the site. And then when they leave the site, they will reverse the direction and get back to highway number 1. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, just to reiterate the panelists here, we got Brett Palmer, who is the mines manager. There's myself, civil engineer project manager, who assisted Brent with securing the necessary permits for the project. Ken Armstrong is the drilling and blasting contractor. If there's any questions that may be to do with drilling and blasting, he may be able to answer some questions. David Neal is the hydrogeological engineer, and he's with Active Earth. He can answer your questions with regards to groundwater. Ian White and Tom Plath are the environmental experts. One of them will hopefully be able to answer your questions with regards to environmental issues. And again, John Richmond is the rock engineer and is stepping in for James Weatherall on the geotechnical side. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to pass it back to Patrick. I know he's got a few other things that he'd like to say, and then we can get into answering your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. The couple of things I just wanted to mention. So we've got a question here asking just on the chat, who is represented from the city? And so representing the city, we have, actually, I'm going to hand it over to, because I might get your titles wrong. Rob or Tyler, can I hand it over to you just to introduce your team?
Sure. At the city here, I've got myself, Rob Isaac. I'm the general manager of engineering.
Tyler Bowie, director of utilities infrastructure.
And Dave Lowen, manager of engineering inspections and permits.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for your question, Heidi. And thanks, guys, for introducing yourselves. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, I forgot to mention it before, and that was that there's been some questions that we've got around which governing body is responsible for what. And so we're not going to have that conversation tonight. That is not the venue for determining which level of government is responsible for which permitting process. Tonight, the conversation is around Abbotsford's soil removal permit as it relates to material leaving the site. And like I said earlier, my comments stand from what I said earlier about the fact that while the provincial permit has already been approved and issued, we understand that there will be some questions as it relates to this process that will overlap with that process. So we're prepared to, we're definitely here to answer those. We just want to be really clear about what we're talking about tonight and the lens through which we're viewing or taking these questions, and we're handling this conversation. Okay, let's get into the next step we're going to go into here is the written questions. So I'm going to read the written questions I've got here, and then we'll hand it over to the appropriate QP to answer. Okay, so the first one was, and Kelly, this is directed to you. We received several general questions regarding traffic. And so could you speak to the expected impacts on traffic as it relates to this application?
What I can speak to is the truck movements into and out of the site are deemed safe. Sight lines are excellent. Visibility is good. During blasting, there will be traffic management in place, which will keep the public away from the site as long as needed to maintain safety. And then once the blasting has occurred, it is deemed safe, then the traffic will be opened up again. That's okay. About all I can say right now.
And to the people asking those questions, we also went over the truck route. Kelly, you identified the route in and out. We also talked about sight lines and the appropriate access in and out of the pit. Brent, as the mines manager, could I get you to speak to, I know there's some concern about volumes, and maybe you can shed some light on what's happening with the other pit down the road and how those operations are winding down while this pit's increasing. So do you want to speak to that in terms of volume?
Sure. What's happening with the pit that's farther down the road, that one's in a reclamation stage. There's some product that's still going to be coming out of that pit in its raw form, being in pit run, but very, very little will be coming out of that pit. Most of it will be coming into the pit as the pit is reclaimed with topsoil and being put back into farm status. The equipment in that pit right now has been taken out of that pit, the crushers, and have been brought into the new quarry. So what we're getting is we're not getting an increase in truck traffic as much as they're just coming from a different location. The truck traffic will be much the same as what it is right now. It won't be increasing or adding a pit to it. So that's basically it in a nutshell. So all of the equipment, or 80% of it, has been moved into the new quarry at this time already.
Okay, thanks for that. The next question, which is also for Kelly. Kelly, can you speak to what or which dust control procedures that will be in place or are already in place, perhaps?
Well, with regards to dirt being tracked out onto the road from the pit to out into Quadling Road and beyond, that's monitored, and there'll be street sweeping as needed. From what I've seen, it's been pretty good, but it'll be monitored, and if needed, maybe water might need to be applied, but that's about it. And we can ramp it up from there if we have to, but those are usually the typical things that are done.
Okay. And Brent, do you have anything to add to that as the mines manager?
Inside the mine, we have dust control procedures inside the mine. The plants have water spray bars, which will be used. That's being set up as the plant's being put together. The roads right now, eventually the outbound and the inbound entrance into the pit will be taken and paved. That'll keep the dust down as well. The outside roads, as Kelly was talking about, that will be swept as needed, if not daily.
Okay, thank you. And I'm seeing some questions coming in on the chat. So what I'm gonna ask you to, I'm not gonna pass those questions on in this portion of the event. We'll get through the written questions, and then by all means, please ask that again if you want some clarification on that, or if you have a follow-up question. We're almost up to the point where we're gonna open it up for everybody. Okay, so thanks for being on top of things. The next question that we got in writing was, this is for John Richmond. So John, if you can prep for this, what are the impacts on the pump station from blasting and any vibrations?
Yeah, the mine permit defines vibration limits for the pump house or the dam structure. And the permit has defined that as 9.5 millimeters per second. So the vibration monitors will be set up at that location, and the blasting will be maintained below that level. And there's another limit that's been set at the northeast end of the property at 25 millimeters per second. So monitoring will be held during every blast, and we'll have records to define what actually occurred for each blast. And then if blasting is found to be close to or approaching those thresholds, then blast designs will be adjusted to keep vibrations below those levels.
So are those limits, do they form a part of the permit or the overview from the Ministry of Mines?
It's defined in the permit.
Okay, defined
from an EM.
And then, like you said, after each blast, there's a report it's monitored, recorded, and then each blast there is a report, I'm guessing, that would go back to quantify the blasting activity.
CanArm, Brent, CanArm is collecting the data, and the information is being retained on site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. Okay, just wanted to close the loop on that. Thanks, John.
Okay.
Okay, the fourth question. How is the water contacting the site, or so the water that's contacting the site, how is that managed? And are there contaminants of concern? Okay, I'm sorry, the question is written a little, I'm not quite reading this correctly, but if we could get David, you're on the line. Could you speak to how groundwater is managed on the site? Are there any contaminants of concern? What sort of monitoring is there? And is there concern for the nearby reservoir and pipe systems?
Hi, sorry, I cannot get the video working. I had to go in through my browser, so I'm not able to get that going. there's very little groundwater because the rock is fairly tight. Most of the water that will have to be handled will be rainfall that's falling on the surface. It will have to be collected and stored in sediment ponds prior to release. There are certain contaminants that are known for gravel pits and rock quarries, and they're the typical contaminants associated with working equipment, such as fuels and oils. We don't like to see significant maintenance on these sites unless there's secondary spill containment procedures in place. There also will be monitoring. We have proposed to put a down gradient well in, sample that for background groundwater, and also monitor the Sumas River itself, collect background samples for that water also, so we have a comparison during the operations. So it's mainly everything is contained on site. We would, for protection of the Sumas River, we would be looking at the criteria to protect surface water, to protect the river itself. There are the provincial publications show 2 aquifers, but the wells in the area show that there's only one, and that's a confined aquifer, which means it's a sand and gravel layer which is overlain by significant thickness of silts and clays, which are well protected. And there are 2 wells just north of the site, but based on the direction of groundwater flow, they would be cross gradient. And because of the protection of the overlying clays, we don't see any issue with those being impacted. It would, however, be prudent to sample those wells as background so we have something to compare to.
Okay, so I've got one more question that is not technical. So before I move on to those, Brent, as the mines manager, or any of the other qualified professionals want to speak to what's been raised, or questions, or close the loop on any of these issues that have been raised?
No, I've basically, it's Brent here. I've taken and handed that over to David Neal at Active Earth, and any of his recommendations will be followed through the mine site.
Okay, excellent. And what about any of the other issues that were raised? Anything we need to add at this point? I'm sure we'll get versions of his questions coming forward, but I just want to make sure I get I'll give all of you the opportunity to respond.
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Then Brent, I've got a question. The last question relates to community benefits. So the question was, what, if any, community benefits are there? And in some of the one in particular, the emails we got, there were suggestions of potentially some work being done on the Centennial Trail. There was another suggestion for providing coupons for cleaning residents' homes and cars and that kind of stuff. So do you want to speak to that?
Sure, I can. Let's talk about the Centennial Trail. Before we started this, we had some. We were speaking with the regional district, which was looking after the Centennial Trail coming off the top and coming into the property of where it was stopped. After the quarry is finished, the property owner that owns the quarry will be in. He'll be in negotiations or talks with both Abbotsford and with the regional district at that time in order to figure out some way to bring that Centennial Trail down onto, or a safe way down onto the quarry floor, or onto the floor joining all 3 properties, or whatever properties it takes. But that's going to be a joint effort between Abbotsford, the property owners, the surrounding property owners, and the regional district.
Okay, excellent. And then as the other any other items, I guess, is it fair to say that any other suggestions or things that you may look at in the future are still to be determined in terms of further community benefits?
Sure. I mean, we always want to take, we want to look after our neighbors. We always want to take and do that. In the past, when a neighbor has wanted material for a driveway, or to fill potholes, or, to do work around their houses in the immediate area, they come in and pick up their material, and there's never a charge for their material. That would go on this too. We're not, if you're looking at, 100 truckloads, that's something different. But if you're looking at filling your potholes or needing some rock for a driveway or a patio or something like that, yeah, by all means, give me a call, and we've always taken and worked with the neighbors in the area.
Okay. Well, Brent, I can tell you, as someone who enjoys watching or walking other parts of the Centennial Trail, extending that piece to come down to Quadling Road would be a very cool thing. And so we'll be watching that with interest.
Yeah, that was actually brought up even before we before we committed and went into this project in the very beginning. And that was brought up. We had a very high level meeting with Abbotsford and all the people involved at that point in time. So I think a few of these people from the Abbotsford congregation on that side were there as well. So we're still looking at that part of it. But like I said, it encumbrances quite a few people, property owners, and different levels of government on that. So.
Okay, thanks for that. I've got a sixth question that came in later on, and Ben handed it over to me. Kelly, I believe this is for you, or you tell me. I'll ask the question, and you can direct it as you see fit. What does oversight look like for the quarry, and what monitoring occurs? And I think this is as it relates to just overall mine operations. And Brent, you might want to jump in as well. But Kelly, do you want to take as the QP, or the lead engineer, do you want to speak to this?
You're muted, Kelly. We're gonna need you to unmute. Thanks.
Sorry. With regards to the consultants, at the startup of the project, we've gone out, we've done an inspection, and subsequent inspections, they're not on a set time scale. It's going to be as needed, working with Brent. John's been out several times. I've been out a few times. With regard to other agencies, mines and Ministry of Environment, we don't define their schedule, so they'll come out when they want. I believe, Brent, you can speak to that. I think both agencies have been out already to the site. So hopefully that answers the questions, but Brent, I'm going to turn that over to you as well.
Yeah, that's covered under the mines. That's covered under the mines branch that we have to follow. We have to follow the instructions, one of our engineers. We also have to follow the mines code. In the mines code, it states what we can't do and who we have to contact.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I'm sure there will be more related questions to this, which we can get into when we go live here, which we're about to do in a minute. I'm getting some other questions, or I'm seeing them. I think you're also addressing these questions to other members of the panel. If you could please answer or ask these questions now. We're now going to go into so I've got a question here from A 2014, a couple of them. And then I've got a couple of questions from Weeb. So the fact that I'm not responding to these doesn't mean we don't want to answer them. We're going to go into the live portion of the meeting. And if you could please reiterate those questions just to make sure that they got answered. And Ben, I'm going to ask you, are you seeing this as well as I am? Are you seeing, or am I just seeing it as the host?
Some of the questions, I guess, are addressed directly to you.
Okay. So I've got a question from 218 around A214 is the username. Questions around notice before a blast, and also about the cross-section diagram that Kelly showed, just showing the got a question about the access road. So if you can just please, these questions, I want them to be asked, but if you could just speak them out verbally, and then Kelly and or the appropriate QP can speak to that, okay? So I'm not ignoring you. I just want to make sure that, that you get a chance to bring that up.
So
okay.
As we start this portion, as a reminder, if you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. That will put you in a queue, and then we can, Patrick will be able to choose who next speaks, and we'll be able to unmute you so you can address the panelists. So it looks like we have the first hand that's up is from Wayne. So Patrick, if you want to unmute Wayne, and if you would like to address your question. Wayne, you will, after we unmute, you'll have to unmute yourself. So thank
Here
you.
we go. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yes, good. Thank you very much. How many trucks a day are going to be running the road, running out of that pit? Who is fixing the roads? Who's policing the trucks? Because we've been run off the roads a few times. My grandkids are scared to go to the end of the road to pick up mail, for crying out loud, because they pretty much have no consideration for anybody on the road, these truckers. And who's going to pick up the crap once they dump it when they, because last year somebody, one of the trucks dumped a full load in the corner here on a Saturday full of garbage material, and nobody's ever cleaned that up either. And who has liability for the mine for when you crack the dam from all the blasting?
Okay, is that the end of your questions, Wayne?
My questions. You got
Okay,
them all.
excellent. Thank you. I'm going to mute the line again, and then now we're going to go to the panel to speak to this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so who should we go to first? So I heard a question in there about traffic, managing traffic. I heard reference to cleaning up debris on the road. I think that we spoke to that in terms of sweeping and so forth, but we can quickly do an overview of that. And then lastly was the question around blasting and the effects on the pump station. So Kelly, should we start with you, and then you direct it where you want to after that? I'm guessing John, you might want to jump in, and Brent, you might have a couple of comments as well. Let's start.
I can't speak specifically about truck volumes, but if truckers are not obeying the rules of the road like the rest of us when we use a road, that should be reported to the police, and the police will need to do the necessary, take the necessary measures. So that's what needs to happen there. That's nothing to do with the design or the pit operation. That's obviously an issue with the truck driver. I think I'll churn the issue of the damage to the pump station. That's a vibration issue, John. I think if you can provide some level of comfort to Wayne, I don't know if that's possible, but I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, sure. The vibration limits that have been set for the pump station are safe. I don't know the details about how the pump station's been designed and how resilient it would be for vibrations or seismic events, but these vibration limits for the blasting are low. And if we stay within those limits, there should be no damage to that structure.
Okay, thank you. Brent, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, the truck traffic is going to be basically no difference or no different than what we have, like I had mentioned before, of what we have now. It'll be the same volume of truck traffic that we've had in the past is what we will be looking at in the future.
Okay. The one piece that I would what I've heard earlier in this meeting is that as it relates to back to the vibration level and the blasting, is that's all going to be, that all has provincial oversight, right, John? And that's tied to the mine's permit, and it will be monitored by the mine's inspectors, is my understanding based on what I heard earlier. So it's not like that stuff is, now that the mining approval that the MountainSide has received, that they can simply go off and blast without oversight or a plan. That's going to be very closely monitored, would be my thinking.
Correct. Yeah, the mine inspector will be looking for that information on his routine visits.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Excellent. Now, Wayne, back to you. Do you want to? Here, I'm going to ask. Do you have a follow-up question to what you just asked?
Yeah, my question really has not been answered. I mean, who's going to be fixing the roads? Because the dump trucks and the trucks have destroyed number 3 road. We've had a truck, as I said, flip over on the side here in front of our house. We're the first place property on the parallel road, and we've been run off the road. So this is actually a safety issue. It's more a policing issue. What do we have to do? Put a speed bump at the end of our driveway to slow these buggers down? They don't give a shit. They couldn't care less about safety, traffic safety.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne. I'm going to mute the line. Kelly, let's go back to talk about, okay, so obviously the roads are managed and overseen from a maintenance point of view by the city of Abbotsford. Do you want to speak to, sort of how that works from the neighborhood point of view? And then also maybe just reiterate the fact that traffic calming and speed obviously would either be a policing issue or perhaps traffic,
Yeah, I think it's, if somebody's speeding, that's an enforcement issue. So the police would have to be, they should be notified, obviously. And I would recommend notifying Brent as well, so he can speak to the truck drivers. With regards to maintenance, I think that's a city of Abbotsford issue. If it's directly related to Brent's activities, I'm sure there's going to be a discussion between Brent and the city on that. So that's about all I'll say there.
Okay.
Patrick, maybe I'll just add in here that the city does collect a soil fee, and that's for wear and tear on the roads throughout the city. I would expect that any wear and tear on the roads on number 3 road would be covered under the soil fee. But anything along, say, above the flood box and along Quadling Road is more directly related to this pit, and that's something we would discuss with Brent individually to talk about repairing. Also, I'll just mention too that where most of these trucks going in and out of the pit are owner operated. They're not owned by the mine site generally. And in areas up on Sumas Mountain where we've had some very aggressive truck drivers, those trucks have been notified to the pits directly, and it's up to the mines operator to talk to them, and has the option to suspend them from picking up gravel. So that's been something that has worked up on Sumas Mountain, but that's something that Brent can consider here.
Thanks a lot for that, Rob.
It's
Kelly,
Brent here.
I'm seeing Rob, Kelly, I'm seeing you nodding. Brent, anything to add?
Yeah, basically to Wayne, like my number is out there on all the signs. At some point in time, if you need to, by all means, get a hold of me. If you get a truck number, color, license plate number, any nuisance trucker that's out there, we take a very dim view of it. That will be followed up with the trucker or the dispatcher. We've had problem truckers in the past. To date, out of the pit on Quadling Road, we've banned 3 truckers out of there. They have been banned for life. 2 of them were drivers, and subsequently they lost their jobs driving that truck because they couldn't come in and pull material out of that pit. So we do take that very seriously, and that is something that Rob brought up that was happening on Sumas Mountain. We've copied that, or they've copied us over the past, however it is. But yeah, I would like to know about the truckers right away if you can, because that will be looked after this next trip that they come into the pit. And we take that very dim view of anybody being a nuisance trucker out there. We also work with the Abbotsford Police Department as well. They have we've given them full authority to come in, sit at our gate, and wait for the trucker to come back out of the pit. If there is in fact a problem, or if you were run off the road, by all means, they take a dim view of it as well. So we'll look after both that side. You did mention on number 3 road, just Rob can follow that up too. On number 3 road, that's a road that we share, and I believe that they've paved that, or in the last few days they've taken and paved that. But that's a road that all the pits, even up on Sumas Mountain, share, because they're coming off on number 3 road and heading either our direction or heading back up to Sumas Mountain on the other way on parallel road.
Okay, thanks a lot. In the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving along here. Ben, it looks like the next person we've got is Weeb. that's, if you're in agreement with that, if I'm reading this correctly, then I'm going to bring Lee onto the line.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, unmute your line and ask your question, please.
Hi, yes. It was mentioned earlier that dust is being monitored. I would like to know how it is being monitored, what standards are being used. We have young children, and since this operation has started, we've had a gross layer of dust covering our property. I would not say that it has been pretty good so far, and it really concerns me that that's the term that's being used right now. So is it going to get worse?
Okay, thanks for your question. I'm going to mute the line. Just give me a second here. Mute the line, and let's go back to let's see who wants to take that question. That's either a Kelly question or a Brent question, I'm thinking. So how is the dust monitored? Kelly, do you want to speak to that in terms of the plan?
Well, normally through a construction practice, it's a visual monitoring.
By whom?
By the proponent. So the contractor that's doing the work. The city of Abbotsford will also have an inspector that comes by the site periodically. So if they see it, if we see it, when we come out and do our periodic inspections, we will notify Brent of that. But it's something that, I mean, Brent, you can speak up on this, but you guys are proactive on that type of thing of making sure. I mean, if mud's being tracked out into the road or dust is being brought out into the road, it's usually dealt with. But I mean, I don't know exactly where she lives and how close she is to the pit. Yeah, I'll pass it to you, Brent.
Yeah, what we have now is we have installed on our plant a water. It's a dust suppression system, and it uses water. It uses very fine mist of water, so it sprays it on 6 different areas of the plant to completely stop the dust that's coming out from the crushing process of any of the rock on the plant. The dust coming up from any of the trucks running on the road, like I said, we're in the process of paving the entranceways and the exit and the entranceways in and around the pit. That'll stop should stop most of the dust coming out from in and around the trucks. We have also got a water truck on site as well, and we'll be using a water truck if need to in order to spray the roads down if the machines themselves are found to be kicking up dust. Usually that's not the case. Usually it's on crushed rock once the pad is set in the pit itself. The dust is basically gone because the machines are running on a hard rock surface at that point in time.
Okay. Let's see. I think, let's see. Let's go for a follow-up question here. If you want to unmute your line.
Yes, thank you. That didn't really answer my question of who is monitoring the air quality to make sure that it's safe. I'm worried about the health of my children, and with them being outside, being outdoors all day, breathing in a cloud of dust. Is it silica? What are they breathing in? What damage is being done to their lungs? We see the dust, we know it's there. Who's monitoring that to make sure it's safe for them?
Okay, thanks for your question again. Thanks for the follow-up. Let's go back to the panel. Okay. So let's just clarify. I think we spoke to it, but let's just clarify. So a neighbor is seeing dust. Well, first of all, what I'm hearing you say, Kelly, is that the proponent is responsible for monitoring their own activities.
That's correct.
Okay. So then is there some version of oversight as it relates to dust as well? Is that a matter of Ms. Wiebe communicating that with Brent and just saying, is this complaint driven? How is this resolved, or what is the oversight? What does it look like?
I do not know of a standard with regards to the amount of dust in the air. I don't know if anybody else does. Brent, I don't know if you've experienced that in the past. I don't have a good answer for that one.
No, not until we know where she is, I guess. How far away she is from the quarry, whether that, the dust is originating in the quarry or outside the quarry from around farms or fields, or it's hard to judge that at that point in time.
Fair enough. And you just pointed out a good something that I missed. I haven't been getting addresses from the last two people that spoke. So this perhaps we could do through the chat section. So Weeb, if you could just message your address, we'll actually have something we can work with in terms of your location, and we can arrange some kind of follow-up for you so that we can address this in a more practical way. So if you would want to please send us your address. And Wayne, who spoke earlier, if you could please also message me your address, just so we know where you live and that you are indeed in the subject area. That would be great as well. So why don't we leave it at that? Sorry, Ben?
Yeah, just to jump in, we're asking for name and address, mostly just for identification. So just like any sort of municipal process, that's just regular procedure and expectation.
Yeah. And in this case, I think there's a practical reason for it, because then Brent can look into where this is and try to determine the source of the dust as well.
Yeah. So if I picked up another part of that question, Brent or someone else who is able to speak to this, perhaps this is a question for that James Wetherell should answer. What is the makeup of the dust in terms of, is it dirt? What is it? And where is it coming from on the pit normally?
So again, I think this speaks to Brent, by all means, I'm not cutting you off, but I think this speaks to your answer, which is until we know where that dust is coming from, until we know where she lives, I don't know that we can speak to it. I just got a message from Melissa. We 40460 North Parallel Road. So Ben or Brent, we'll pass that back to you. And she is certain, she's messaging, she is certain that the dust is coming from the pit and not the farmland. So Melissa, if you can leave that with us, we will take that back. And obviously that's of concern to the operators of the pit. Ben,
maybe I can jump in there for a minute, Pat. If she would like to, my numbers are out there. If she would like to meet with me on that issue, we take that very seriously. And again, I can meet with her at her site, and we can figure out how to make that go away.
Okay.
And where and what it's coming from.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Brent. And then now we got Wayne's address as well. Thank you very much, Wayne. Okay, let's move on to the next. Is there, by the way, anybody else have any comments on this issue before we move on? Nope, not hearing anything from the panel. Okay, let's move on to Cameron Rains. Cameron, if you want to unmute your line and.
Can you hear me here?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, to further on the Miss Weeb's questions to Brent, can you please explain your dust suppression as of the blasting process and the bailing of the aggregate off the quarry face? Because numerous videos are showing exactly where that dust is coming from. So can you please explain how you're going to control that volume of dust?
At that point in time, that's something that we'd have to look at and see just where it's coming from, whether it is the rock dust that's coming down, or whether it's the topsoil / sand that's on top of the rock that's coming down. Again, we'd have to see what dust is actually coming into their place.
Okay, just follow-up question from Cameron.
Okay, yeah, sorry, my address is 40351 number 1 road, to exactly 364 meters from the pit.
40351. Okay, yeah. Thanks.
This next question's for John. You mentioned that you were unsure of the construction of the pump station. How can you be sure that these safe limits are adequate for the pump station and the floodgates? And are these being monitored just during blasting, or is this during the heavy truck traffic crossing those floodgates?
Thanks, Cameron. I'm going to mute your line and I'm going to give John the opportunity to answer. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Truck vibrations would be like 1 or 2 millimeters on that structure. It'd be tiny. The 9.5 millimeters per second for the blasting at that structure is a very safe limit. Typically for concrete structures, 25 millimeters per second is a safe limit and will not cause damage to concrete structures. So the 9.5 millimeters is a conservative limit that's been set for this particular structure, given I think the consequence around it. And it's 9.5 is about something that we would use for an older, like a brick structure that may be in the deteriorated condition. So it's a safe limit for something like this.
Thanks, John.
Patrick, sorry, if I can just jump in. Are these reports, because the pump station is overseen by the city, are these reports shared with the city?
Yes, that's my understanding. My understanding is that the city.
We should let the QPs respond to that.
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea. John or Kelly?
Vibration monitoring?
I don't know who's reporting that to the city.
No, we're talking about in the original application, the city would have copies of that report that
all the reports. Yes, they do.
Yeah, so they have all of that as well as it relates to their own infrastructure.
Yes, they do.
Okay, that was your question, Ben?
The city has all of the reports that have been prepared for this pit.
Okay, very well. Okay, let's move on to, let's see, who do we have next?
Patrick, can I just add something here?
You bet.
With regards to the flood boxes, we'll be doing a survey initially, and we'll be monitoring throughout the course of this project to ensure there's no adverse effects.
Staff there. Daily.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Cameron, thank you. You've spoken. So if you've got further questions, we're going to go to other attendees or other questions before we come back to you. So okay, got it. Your question was answered. I just saw your hand disappear. Fantastic, thank you. Our next person asking a question is Heidi Wall. Heidi, go ahead, unmute your line and ask your question, please.
Hi there, it's actually Lee Atkinson from next door.
Oh.
And my address is 61200 Interprovincial Highway. You got that?
You get that, Ben?
Yeah, we're good. Go for it, Lee.
Okay, so as taxpayers living in Abbotsford and out here in Barrowtown, we feel we have the rights for a safe and healthy, vibrant community to live and enjoy our lives, free of non-toxics in the air quality and increased noise, etc. I'm a primary caregiver for my 6-year-old sister who has cerebral palsy. She suffers from various major health issues, is wheelchair bound, and cannot manage on her own. So we do our best to make sure she can be outside as much as she can. However, now with all the dust coming in the air more and more, just with this temporary permit that's been issued, is a cause for concern. So I got her doctor to write a letter here, and it's short, I'm just gonna read it to you. It says, Julia Sigma has major health concerns, including cerebral palsy, risk of aspiration and pneumonia, and is wheelchair bound. One of her few joys in life is to be able to be outside in her neighborhood. I have concerns regarding a gravel pit / mine going into the neighborhood and how that will affect her overall health. It is quite possible it will worsen the respiratory health of this already disabled woman. So, a lot to think about, guys. The dust in the air is insane already out here, but the answers I'm getting and what I'm hearing are not what I don't think we want to hear out here. The dust covers all of our outdoor furniture. It's in our homes already. It happened the last time that pit was open. So my big question is how am I going to keep her respiratory system operating at 100% to ensure some normalcy? Because we have not been experiencing that lately with the dust. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. I'm going to just mute the line and we'll come back to you for a follow-up. Okay, who wants to speak to that? Like I think it's a follow-up of the question that we just heard from Melissa. So if there's no one to speak, add any sort of further information, I'm just going to say that we've noted your question. It's written down. Obviously, this is all going back to the proponent, and anything that they can do, as was mentioned to Melissa, to address that will be done. Is there anything else that we want to add? No. Okay. Thank you for your.
Yes, we do. Sorry.
Yeah. Once again, guys, that's embarrassing right there that nobody could answer my question. Okay. So, you cannot keep that dust at bay. We know that. So just keep your heads up. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks a lot. Okay, let's move to, let's see, Chris. Okay, Chris, I'm going to open the line. There you go. Just want to unmute your line and then you can ask your question.
Okay, a couple quick comments. We did request the possibility of having this meeting go a little longer just to be most productive.
Chris, can you share your name and address, please? Chris?
Chris, 40372 number 1 road. And just a quick comment, Kelly had said that the mine operator is quite proactive regarding mud and dust. Just to follow up to the other comments that were made by Lee and Ms. Weeb, proactive would mean that there would have been some answers, and it doesn't seem to be at this point. So obviously that'll be a follow-up, but just wanted to be clear that that's our take on it. What I'd like to talk about, as members of the local community, we've enjoyed access to local public lands, trails, and parks, including Sumas Mountain, for multiple generations. However, we are concerned about the presence of an active heavy industrial property operating with unrestricted access, particularly with respect to children. Of note, both the permit and the notice of work contain provisions for restricting access, and site design drawings specifically show fencing surrounding the property. Can you please advise why perimeter fencing surrounding the property has not been installed a year after the permit was issued, in spite of all the heavy equipment and ongoing operations at the site?
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'm just going to mute your line. So let's speak to the fence and the timing of that. I know there were some reasons and there's some procedural issues in terms of timing and when that's going to happen. Kelly, should I go to you first, or Brent? Do you want to speak to the fence construction?
Sure, I can speak somewhat to it. The fence on the front, it was fenced right across the front. Then with the redesign of the front berm and the safety berms on the front, the fence was taken down. It's now being reestablished. Actually, we ended up having to wait for materials to come in because of COVID from our fence contractor. But as of this afternoon, the fence was back up, and it has been meshed right from one side to the other. There is some hookup parts on it that's going to be taken and completed tomorrow, being the two fences hooked together where they where they come together from the one berm, from the lower berm to the upper berm. The other part is where it's going to be hooked into the rock wall onto Abbotsford's property, which will be done again tomorrow by the contractor. The fencing going down each side, we are fenced on the one side. The other two sides, it's straight face walls, rock walls, to where we can't take and run fences down the rock walls. The mines are very aware of that. The fence on the back side of the property, the machines are going up across. There was a barbed wire fence that was up that went from tree to tree that the last operators had put up there. We're taking and redoing that right now as we speak, and that's being completed with the machines up there going along the property lines. So a fence will be placed up on that side. We could not reach that beforehand until this first work was done in order to get the machines up into the back property. As soon as we could access it, both machines are up there and they are clearing the fence line. That fence should be, we're hoping to have that fence installed in the next couple of weeks, or as soon as that fence line is accessible.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's going to be installed as soon as it's possible to install it.
Yeah, exactly.
Kelly, any comments from you before I go back to Chris?
Oh, I think Brent got it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Chris, if you want to, there we go. Unmute your line for a follow-up.
So can you confirm those timelines, and can you also help us understand again why full operations have been operating without sufficient fencing when safety is and seems to be what you preach, but yet it seems that when it comes to certain things, it doesn't seem to be your priority?
Okay, so I'm going to mute the line again, Chris. I'm going to direct this question to Kelly, because this is something that I learned as I learned about this site, that this is a unique site in terms of the rock cliff, the face, the needed access in order to address issues at the top. So Kelly, can you just walk through why, from a logistical, practical point of view, why that fence wasn't able to be built until the road was cleared and put back up to the top? You're muted, by the way. Should mind you don't mute. Here we go. I think it's a good question in it. I think
it is a good question, and there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to to the operation of the pit and making it safe. There's a lot of things that Brent has to deal with in terms of delivery of products. He's doing his best to implement all the safety measures. The big piece of the rockfall protection was the berm itself, which protects rolling rock from making its way onto the road. And the equipment needed to get to the top in order to scale things down to make it safe. I think, Brent, I'm going to pass it to you in terms of timing, though. I think you're doing what you can when you can. Yeah, I'll switch that back over to you.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, what was happening out there is when the fence was being built and the berm was being built, we had to go back and forth. We had to do some scaling onto the top in order to get the machines close enough and to be working underneath that face without having rocks come down onto fence, the fence operator or the fence contractors, and to the guys building the berm onto the bottom, down to the traffic onto the bottom. Even down to setting those cement blocks that were at the bottom of the face down there. So there was some work that we had to do back and forth, which Golder was very much aware of, where we had to pull people off the site and off the job different times in order to get more scaling, more rock off the roads from the top in order to make it safe for the guys onto the bottom. So every time we do something, every time we go up another level, that's when we have to bring Kelly, either yourself or we brought John in 3 different times for inspections up there before we could go up onto the next level. So it takes time to bring this site back into compliance of what it should be, but we're working on it, and we're working with all the parties involved, be it the mines and Abbotsford.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Okay, we're going to move on to, and Kelly as well. We're going to move on to the next question coming from Howard. Howard, if you want to unmute your line and ask your question, please.
Yeah, my name is Howard Bailey, and address is 40372 number 1 road. And my question is in relation to the discharge from the site that was talked about earlier as far as the monitoring. And since 2007, this site has had a permit requirement that water contacting the site be collected and diverted into settling ponds and not discharged until it meets standards established by MOE. And similar language remains in the permit even today, but there is no settling pond on the site. And my concern is, it was good to hear, refreshing in fact, to hear some discussion earlier in this presentation regarding discharge and monitoring, but it's not clear where that settling pond would actually go, and also whether the sampling at a single point would actually be representative of water moving off the site, since, as the gentleman mentioned, it is moving through discrete cracks in the rock, as opposed to sort of uniform sheet flow through, say, a gravel substrate. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to mute that for a second. Okay. Kelly, who should speak to that? I don't see David on the, I don't see David here, but Kelly.
Oh, Dave's there.
Okay.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Patrick.
There we go. There you are.
Yeah. Because most of what the water we're going to be handling is from rainfall, it needs to be directed to the settling ponds, to a point of monitoring. The volume of water that is in the cracks is not significant and is not an environmental issue. The main issue is the large flows, the sediment coming off, and it should all be graded to a single point where it can be monitored properly. And we're looking at, we have to define where those settling ponds will go, but we're also looking at, we will do quarterly monitoring. We'll do background monitoring when we get this going, and to do quarterly monitoring until such time we don't think that's necessary, or we might want to change the program. If we see issues, then of course the monitoring would increase.
Okay, thanks, David. Anybody else on the panel want to add anything to that? No? Okay. Ben, we should, well, let's see, before we get to someone who might have phoned in, Howard.
Howard, do a follow-up.
Yeah, there we go. Howard, you want to do a follow-up question to this? No?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Yep.
So a couple of questions I would have is, given what you've mentioned is going to take time to implement in terms of design and just construction, is how long that would be anticipated to take, and also whether the quarterly sampling is going to be sufficient. It's going to be problematic to figure out relationships between storm events and flows, antecedent dry periods, and so on, unless you're doing a more frequent sampling design up front, figure out where the relationships are so that you know when your contaminants might be actually mobilized and moving. And given some consideration that a fair amount of asphalt road grind has already been integrated into the site. So there's things other than, say, suspended sediments that you're going to have to worry about as water moves through the superficial layers of the soil, unless you have planning an intercept system or something like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, David, is that a question for you, or Kelly, is that something that you want to speak to?
That's something we can probably both speak with too. I would work with Kelly on looking at a stormwater flow design for collecting that water and be able to monitor it. It all depends. The monitoring schedule depends on when this gets going. My biggest concern is to have it in place before the next winter rains. So we can have the background going, because basically if it's not raining, we're not getting much water coming off there. I'm not too concerned about the asphalt grindings. We have done numerous projects where we've monitored these, and we've come up with certain criteria as long as we're at least 10 meters away from a surface water source and the grindings are not above the water table, and that they should be covered with some sort of surface to prevent water from infiltrating to them too quickly. But that would be picked up in what we call the first flush, when we get the first heavy rain starting in November. That's when we would target the first monitoring period. That if we see anything picked up at that point, then we'll make some modifications to it.
Okay, Kelly, you want to add to that?
Yeah, we'll work with Dave. We'll come up with a system between the two of us, and we'll make sure that that's taken care of, working with Brent as well.
May I just want to speak to that too, Pat. The road grindings that he's talking about is used in the road on the entranceway and the exitway into the pit and onto the scale, and that's what's being covered with asphalt.
Okay, thank you. So let's see. Next, let's see. So we've got a couple people that want to speak again. I'm going to go to Kelvin Hepner, who has not spoken yet. So Kelvin, you want to unmute your line?
Hi. Hey, there's been lots of talk about vibration monitoring through the pump system, but I had a question emailed into you guys and it was not addressed in that initial start of the meeting. So I just want to make sure that our voices are heard. We have our own neighboring water reservoir, the Barrowtown Waterworks system. There is approximately 28 properties on that system, and the reservoir is located on the mountain right by the quarry. It's been built in the 50s, but it continues to function very well. We personally have a couple of large dairy farms that feed almost 3,000 head off of this system. So we're wondering why the vibrations, this hasn't been looked at, or maybe it has, but the pump station has been looked at for vibrations, but has there been any assessment for vibrations as far as our system? We do have the right of way, so wondering if you could address that, and if any damage does occur to this system through blasting, how you guys intend to address that.
Okay, thank you, Kelvin. Let's see here. Let's mute the line. John, do you want to speak to that?
Maybe my question would be, how far away is this reservoir from the quarry?
Okay. Kelly, Kelvin, you want to unmute the line and just verify?
Yeah, it's right next to the quarry. We drive past the quarry to get to it. It's right past the quarry on your, I guess your eastern edge of it.
Okay, so there's a vibration monitoring station located at the northeastern property boundary. It's on the road. It's I believe it's going to be bolted to the pavement, and the vibration limit that we're looking at there is 25 millimeters per second. If you have a sensitive structure that is vulnerable to vibrations, you might want to have a consultant look at it and do a condition inspection of it and see whether it needs lower vibration limits. That's all I could say.
Okay. Any other comments before I bring Kelvin back online just for a follow-up? Okay. Let's see. There you go. Go ahead, Kelvin, for your follow-up question.
Okay, so that doesn't really answer any, but like if there's damage that occurs to it, if it is a sensitive system, I'm wondering, what do you guys have any contingencies in place? Like what's going to happen then to the livestock we're feeding and the numerous neighboring properties that rely on this system for their properties?
Okay, thanks, Kelvin. I'm going to mute the line and I'm going to, okay, let's see. How are we going to handle, who takes it?
Can I just jump in?
Yes.
Kelvin, can you provide an address for the waterworks? Because that would provide both us and the city observers a measure of understanding where it is and how it might impact or be impacted.
Yeah, I can. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
It's Brent here. Maybe I can say something to this too, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's on the other side of our, it's to the east side of our property line, but we're bound by the highways pit next to us. And I believe it's on the other side of the highways pit. So it's not right next to our, because we're bound by the highways pit where that reduction yard is. That's on our east side of our property. And then we are also, our property line is also on the next to the highways pit as well. So I believe there's a property in between us and that water reservoir as well. So
okay.
It's at the end of Quadling Road, right past the transfer station.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's one property in between us and that, there's another pit in there as well from the highways pit is in there, and it's on the other side of the highways pit.
Mm-hmm.
Just seemingly sensing the room, I would suggest this might be one that, or a question that would be appropriately responded to in a written form, just to make sure that Kelvin's concerns are written and addressed in a detailed manner, so that both them and the city are aware and are able to, fully explore this question.
And where it is, yeah.
Yeah, if you could mark it up on a city map, exactly the location of it, so that we can take a look at it.
Sounds good. Let's see. Okay, so thanks, Kelvin. Let's see here. Hang on here. Okay, so let's see. Ben, how do we, I see we've got one phone call listener. Can we, how do we give that person the opportunity? Because I think the rest of the questions are repeats now, people speaking to it. So let's check in with the phone call listeners. I'm not sure if they have a question or not, but let's make sure that they don't before we go back and start hearing a second round of questions. Do you know how to help me with that?
So you should just be able to back click on them and allow them to speak.
And how is it? Is that? Oh, I see. Got it. Yep. Thanks. Okay. Do you have I've offered you the opportunity to unmute. I just want to know if you have a question or not before we move on to a second round of questions. The individual, let's see, 778-908-2863. You can unmute your line and share any question you might have. No? Okay.
Patrick, I think this would be a good opportunity to address some of the written questions that were put in the Q&A, and we can direct those towards the panel.
Sure, that's a good point. So, excuse me. So let's see. So we've got a question from A2014. We don't have an address here. Don't know who this is. They didn't speak during or they haven't spoken live yet at this point or in person. The question is, this is for Ken and Brent. We received a notice dropped into our mailbox a day ahead of a blast that was going to happen. Will this be a regular means to notify neighbors each and every time? What is the expected routine blasting schedule, times per day / times per week? Brent, can you speak to that?
Yeah, we will be giving out 24-hour notices, either by hand or by email. Hopefully, I believe we put that on our last notices, trying to get emails back from all the people that we hand delivered those notices to. So it makes it a little easier in order to contact those people in order to get the 24-hour notices out.
Okay. And what is the expected routine blasting schedule?
Right now, I mean, that's something that, is Ken on the line?
He dropped off and haven't been able to get him back on. And so,
okay,
unfortunately not.
This might be something we want to answer in writing as well, if we knew where to send it to, because I don't have an address here.
Yeah, that's probably the best, is to get a hold of Ken, and once Ken comes back on, he's the one that's running the drilling and the blasting on it out there. So,
okay, all I'll say is A2014. Let's see if you're still on the line. Yeah, you're still on the. Oh yeah, you've got your hand up. Okay, there we go. So you know what? I'm going to forego the second question because I see you're going to be coming up to speak. I do have a question from Ron, who does not have their hand up to speak. Question from Ron. The quarry is said to run for 7 years and then be remediated. What happens when the company goes broke midway and leaves the quarry midway again in disarray? Oh, referring to what happened with the past operator. Who wants to take that question?
I can answer some of that. We've put up bonding on that with Mines and with Abbotsford. We've invested a lot of money into this project, so we have no plans on going broke. So that's about the only thing I can say.
But the bonding, it's a performance bond, I take it?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. I'm going to go to A2014 and allow them to speak further. Sorry, I didn't notice that you had your hand up. So here we go. You can ask your follow-up question. Just unmute your line and go ahead.
Yeah, it's Doug Casper. I don't know why I'm A21014, but in any regard, Doug Casper at 40360 North Parallel.
Thank you.
So I didn't get an answer on the number of blasts that are intended. I'm talking about when it would go into the routine production, not just preparing under the emergency permit you're currently working under, but when you're making your application for the 400 plus cubic meters, what can we expect for regularity in that blasting routine? That was my follow-up. So prepare for that and an answer. And my other question was back for Kelly Kerr. Kelly, you showed a cross section with a sawtooth at probably a great location where you could show some reclamation happening on the shelves. How does that look where the access road is, where it's gouged into the rock face? I believe that would be beyond the typical sawtooth cross section. I don't know if you have a slide to back that up or not, just a cross section which would be further west. So just to provide maybe the community a more of a glimpse of what the Scarwell is looking like now and what it'll look like at a reclamation stage.
Yeah, we can pull something together that would be able to show that better. I don't have access to that right now, but we definitely could.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. And just before I go back to you, Doug, Brent, do you want to? He's sort of enlarged on his question in terms of trying to get a bit of an understanding of what the typical blasting schedule will look like when you're in full production. Is that a question you want to wait for Ken to answer, or is that something that you're prepared to speak to?
That's something that we should wait for Ken to talk to on that. We can get back to him in writing on that question. So.
Okay, so Ben, did you get the address? You know what? I'll just get.
Yes.
I'll just get Doug. Go ahead with a follow-up if you like to, if you like, and we'll make sure we get your address.
Yeah, we'll follow up. The address was 40360 North Parallel Road.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Patrick, maybe I can jump in there just one part of that to start. Drilling usually takes anywhere from 4 to 6 days in order to drill. Mucking the ledges off usually will take another anywhere from a week, depending what the blast is, another week to a week and a half on that. So you're looking at 2 weeks. So realistically, if you're looking for blast occurrences, you'd probably be looking at somewhere every couple weeks in that range.
Okay.
But Ken can be more on hand on that, giving out specific times of when they can expect a notice coming out to them, and that would be given in writing then.
So just to be clear, so it's every blast will be a written notice, or like you said, or an email notice if they opt into the email communication.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. There we go. Thanks, Doug. Okay, let's go back to, now I apologize if I'm going to get the order mixed up, but I think we're going to go back to Heidi Wall's line, which I believe was someone else was speaking to that. But let's see, I'm just going to allow you to talk if you want to unmute your line. So this is your second time asking questions. Go ahead.
Heidi Wall.
Okay, Heidi, there we go.
6130 Interprovincial Highway. So my question now, so there's X amount of soil that's being removed from the quarry, but can you tell me how far you're going into the mountain?
Okay, that sounds like a question for Kelly.
I couldn't give you an exact, I'd have to look into the plans to give you an exact answer. It's basically, the idea is that we're reproducing a slope that's going to be at 45 degrees, starting 5 meters from the property boundary. And then you come down towards the road. So right now you've got sections that are near vertical. So that's going to be brought back to a more gentle slope. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how far that is. I'd have to look at that and we could give you a written response on that.
So if you could just, so 6130 Interprovincial Highway, Heidi?
We've got it.
You got it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, you got a follow-up question?
No, just that, things have changed. I just wanted just a general kind of comments for me right now, but things have changed for us since this pit closed the last time. And we're both retired now and we're home all day. And I have to tell you that the noise is just, it's constant. from the debris being tossed over the side of the mountain. The dust again, I'll just reiterate there, the dust. So, I mean, you can't keep up to it, right? So we don't, we find ourselves, we're not enjoying our outdoor spaces anymore. Our windows remain closed. Like, we have to think about what we're going to do outside and what's going on up there at the mountain there. So, we're direct, I don't know how many meters we are from it, but anyways, I just wanted to say that, we've invested a lot of time and energy into this community. My husband's been here for over 40 years, myself over 25. And we just feel that we're not going anywhere. Like, we're just going in circles. And continually we say, it's not in my backyard. And you know what? We don't want it in our backyard. That's it.
Thanks, Heidi. Your comments are noted. Your concerns are noted. And thank you. Thank you for sharing your concerns.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's go back to, let's see, the order of, oh, hang on. Okay, so Weeb, let's go back to Weeb because that was, I believe, was the first one. So I've got Weeb and Howard and Chris all wanting to speak again. So we will go, oops. Oh, no, hang on. Sorry. I'm messing up here. Where's Weeb? Oh, now they're gone. Okay, if you meant to have your hand up, Melissa, please put your hand up again. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to Chris. And there you go, Chris. Unmute your line if you've got another question.
Yeah, thank you. So one quick comment. I'm not sure if maybe Kelly can make a note. Kelly, are you familiar with the BC Mine Code or the Mines Act?
He's nodding yes.
Yes, I am. Are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can't see him.
Oh,
okay, so just maybe you guys want to make a quick note regarding the Barrowtown Water Works. It's my understanding in the code that it does state that when an operation like this needs to take into account community watersheds and structures such as that. So you were mentioning maybe that Kelwyn needs to get an engineer or somebody to do an assessment, but it might fall under your guys' umbrella. So if you want to do your homework on that, we'd appreciate that. What I'd like to speak to though is the berm again. We haven't really talked about it in detail, but the city is permitted an emergency authorization to place a berm and fence immediately adjacent to Quadling Road, fronting the quarry for rockfall mitigation. This action has coincided with installation of no stopping parking signs along Quadling Road well past the property boundaries of the quarry in areas traditionally used by the public for recreation. Emergency would imply a temporary use, but the berm and fence appear to be in place for the duration of quarry operations. Frankly, the base for this decision is an incomplete set of risk submitted to the city on behalf of the operator. Control and limiting rockfall to the property is a responsibility of the operator, and recent scaling operations conducted at the site should have eliminated any potential for loose material remaining from prior operation. Why wasn't the community consulted prior to granting this authorization, and who initiated the berm idea?
That sounds like a question for Kelly.
Well, there is more than just scaling the pit. There's rock that continues to fall beyond even at once. Even if the site's scaled, there's still rock fall issues due to how steep the face is. And there's faults, there's pieces of the rock that needs to be dislodged. You need to use equipment to do that, not just hand scaling. The design of the berm was in consultation or in collaboration with the geotechnical engineer, James Weatherall, who's unfortunately not here today. But that was deemed a necessary measure to protect the public from falling rock, which was occurring prior to any of the safety measures that are being implemented right now. Again, I reiterate, the pit needs to be brought to a stable position, and that entails the benching and additional works. I think, John, you might be able to add some additional comment in there as well.
I do know that James did some rockfall trajectory modeling, looking at simulating rocks falling down the cliff, and came up with the size of the berm to appropriately catch the rocks that are expected to be coming off the slope. So that's my understanding of that. Our scope was to look at the slopes on the access road and to getting up into the quarry at the top. And we've provided recommendations for cleaning up those slopes and making them safe for the workers and for the public on those access, the big steep cuts on the west side and up to the top.
Okay. Kelly, any follow-up to that before I?
No, it's, again, the objective here is the immediate need for the protection of the public using Quad Lane Road. And that's why the measures need to be done as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks. Chris, 1 minute for a follow-up.
Yeah, so when the quarry was dormant, the rockfall safety issue wasn't a big deal. Even Braun's report that you guys submitted, it used words like it is suggested that rock has been falling and such like that. So there wasn't a lot of definition there. You guys should be able to operate your operation on the property that you own. And at this point, what you've done is you've now temporarily, which is going to be 7 years, expropriated, city land and created more risks for bicyclists, fishermen, recreational people, us walking our dogs. We don't have a sidewalk. We don't have a way to get out of the way of the trucks. So I don't know if your risk assessment was done in great detail or if it was just done on what works best for the quarry. But I believe that between the city and the quarry, not all homework was done efficiently and effectively. And I don't think that all parties win in this case.
Okay, that's.
And we'll be following up with the city on this as well.
Okay, so you've run over your time. I'm just gonna mute the line there. There wasn't really a question in there, Kelly. It was more of a statement, but is there anything you want to speak to in terms of how long that berm will be there? You spoke to expropriation of city land. Any comment you want to take to that?
Well, there's no expropriation of city land. I mean, it's still city owns the property. It will be there as long as it's deemed necessary for safety reasons. How long that is, I can't speak to that. We're going to have to play that out.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's go to Howard. Go ahead, Howard.
Thank you. This is a question regarding material on site, but also the material that will be transported off site. And if I read the regulations properly, one of the things that would happen during a mine application or during a periodic review process is the consideration of metal leaching and acid rock drainage in the substrate of a given project. And my concern is based on just sort of the variety and heterogeneity of the different substrates present in the pit walls. And some of that would appear to be potentially associated with ARD or metal leaching. And you guys, or at least some of you, may have a better idea than I do about this, but that issue has not come up in any of the application forms or discussions, but it would seem that it might be of interest, and I just wanted to raise it to the forum to get their input and opinions on.
Okay, is that a question for David?
He's on the water side.
That might be a question
Right.
for James, who isn't available, unless John is able to address it.
It's ARD is not my practice, but I would say that I haven't seen ARD problems on a granitic quarry like this. I've seen it on volcanic quarries, other rock types, but probably should be looked at.
Okay.
I can answer that, Patrick, a bit.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, David.
Okay. To have significant ARD issues, you would need a lot of water, and there's not a lot of water within the rock, within the fractures there. So, and I agree that in granitic rock we really don't see that very much, and there's no indication in the rock face. You would see significant iron staining, for example, as iron is dissolved and it comes in contact with the air, it precipitates, and you get that reddish staining, and which we don't see that. But it's definitely something that should be looked at a bit closer. But I suspect it's not an issue.
Okay, thanks, David. Howard, follow up for a minute.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, so I would agree. It's probably should be looked at. The issue may not be paramount on the site, depending on the amount of water and the contact time or surface area. But as that material is ground up and used for end uses, places where it's used, that could matter. So I would put it into sort of a professional responsibility category to take a look at it, just to make sure that it is or isn't an issue, and because it could affect users beyond just the immediate site itself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see, we've got.
Maybe I can jump in there for 1 minute, Patrick. When that material is crushed up, it's sent out to the customers. The customers do their own testing on that material. So if there was any problems on that material, it would be coming back to us forthwith. So, and we haven't in our other areas around and on the mountain and down on the road, we haven't had any problems with that. So.
Okay, thanks, Brent. We've got a couple minutes left. I just want to, Ron asked a couple of other questions. Okay, so he asked another question about security. So Ron, I think the question around security was simply that a security bond or performance bond has been put up to make sure that the work on the pit is completed. And the last question is, you're asking again more questions about dust control. Can someone explain the way which dust is to be controlled with the bailing of product over the side of the mountain and dropping approximately 100 meters? If anyone wants to speak to that question, that would be good.
Maybe that's something I can speak to, Patrick. I mean, the dust issue is going to come during dry weather. We will do our best to keep the dust at bay and down on it. And if that means, using some water, small amounts of water in order to keep the dust down, we'll take a look at that. We can take that under advisement. But again, we've got to find out what the dust is, where it's coming from, if it's the rock dust, or in fact, if it's just the topsoil or the dust that's on, or the sand that's on top of the rocks right now that's coming down. That would stop very early on anyway. But that's something that we can take and look at. We can get back to them in the future as well. As soon as we find out, we meet with a few of the neighbors out there, find out what the dust is and exactly where it's coming from.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that. So Ron, hopefully that answered your question. I've got, so it's 8 o'clock. I've got 2 people that want to speak for the 3rd time. Ben, does our time run out now automatically, or do we?
No, we should be able to take this a couple minutes over. However, at this time, I will also be sure to throw up a slide that will stay on while we go through. Actually, no, I'll hold off on that. I will first write in the chat, and then at the end, we'll put up a slide. And that's just reinforcing the email that I had sent out previous to make sure that all of the attendees know where to send any follow-up or further questions. We have extended the submission period for additional questions to 2 weeks. So this, the deadline is May 11th. So you can submit questions during that period and you'll receive a written response, as well as including comments. The comments will be a part of the report that's given to council through this meeting. And yeah, I'll throw it over to you, Patrick, to
Okay.
finish.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. Okay, I've got someone with a second question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Heidi for a second question, and then Heidi, when you're done, we'll go back just one more opportunity, and then we're gonna call an end to this. So Heidi, go ahead.
Okay, Patrick, it's Lee.
Hi, it's Lee again.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah. Hi. So once again, I'm very disappointed on my response for my question I had for my sister. Again, very pathetic. Brent and Kelly, you guys, you just don't answer people's questions correctly. And, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a kindergarten class, but anyway, we're zoned residential here, right? And with the 3 pits, the pit and the Quadlings, your pit, the Mountainside, and now the other one at the end of the road, it's like this is industrial. I don't know how Abbotsford, and I hope the city of Abbotsford is looking at all this quite tightly and thinking this is crazy, right? Each and every one of you know, if you lived where we live, you would not want to look at this every day and suck in the dust and have pollution and worry about your kids and their lungs. So let's keep that in mind. Yeah, too much to talk about, guys. We'll do this another time with going in with the sending it all in, but yeah, you won't be able to answer any of these questions because Brent, I don't think you're capable, right? To be honest with you, right? Simple questions, but anyway, I'm done.
Thanks, Lee. Okay. Okay, and the next 2, just because of the time, if you've got a different question, I ask you to keep it to a minute. We'll go to Chris first. Keep it to a minute, please. We are on borrowed time here. I'm doing this out of a courtesy because you do appear to have a follow-up question. Your hand is being up or held up. Please keep it brief, and I'm trusting this is a new question. Go ahead.
Yeah, a little bit more of a statement. Just want to put it out there because again, this is more or less for a city process. But the community has been tasked with recognizing and reporting multiple bylaw and laws being broken. Such of these infractions are road cleaning that is not being done on a daily basis. We'd like it done on a daily basis minimum as per the soil permit. We've witnessed multiple unlicensed equipment on the road as this is illegal and straight up unsafe for the local and visiting public. This includes excavators, loaders, and other machinery not permitted on city roads. The operation of incomplete traffic control without permits. City is well aware of these incidents and it has been reported and documented. The acceptance of soil without permits prior to issuance of the temporary soil permit, hours of operation. They've already operated on 2 Saturdays without permission over the last 10 weeks, as well as they've been opening their yard prior to 6:30. We also witnessed and recorded the acceptance of dirty loads last year into the Quadling Quarry down the road, construction waste, pipe, concrete, rubber, etc. Our initial impression of Brent and his strategies just makes us feel very unsure as what his future in our neighborhood's going to hold. And, Brent does what Brent does to attain his goals. And unfortunately, as I've said above, it is more often than not that things are done the wrong way, the illegal way, or the unethical way. And we are the ones left dealing with the results. The city has seen this over and over, so it shouldn't be a surprise. And we've also had Brent's business associates orally harass a few of the neighbors. And that also leaves the community with a strong feeling of insecurity and ill intent. We've only asked that the rules and laws are followed, but his actions have not shown us this has been his plan. We just want to put that on the record. That's a summary from all of the neighbors. And I thank you for your time, and so do the neighbors.
Thank you. Okay, and if there's no comments to that, then I'm going to go back to I'm going to go to Howard, and then we're gonna call a close. That's going to be the last speaker. So Howard, keep it short, please. New question, hopefully, and keep it to a minute.
Okay, I will be quick. This is again a bit of a statement. It's simply that we're being asked to look at a permit right now, which is at some level perhaps getting ahead of ourselves in the sense that there's still issues regarding proper sort of operations at the site in terms of the fencing, in terms of there's no vegetated berms on the site a year after the permit's granted, which would help to some degree with the visual and the noise, and the system to control and monitor surface water is still not going to be in play until November. So again, just wondering if there's some thought that might be given to maybe refocusing the priorities to make sure that confidence is built in the operations before we go forward.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Appreciate that. Thank you for your concern. Okay, there we go. Okay, so if there's any chat or any comments from the panel before we end this, or Ben, if there's anything further from you in terms of directions, I see that you've put the your email address.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw up the slide with the final information just for residents to be able to see. And as a reminder, submission deadline for additional questions and comments are May 11th, 2021.
I'd like to make a comment.
Regarding this, please direct all questions to benjamin@giesbrechtandco.com. And so we'll be putting together a report as well as all these comments and questions will be and notes from this evening and minutes from this evening will be submitted in a report to the city for their consideration. And for all written questions that are written in, we will get the appropriate qualified professional to respond to write a response to it.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, so let's go back
Patrick,
to, yeah, go ahead.
Patrick.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a comments on it. One, the vegetated berm it's going to be hydroseeded as soon as it was finished. Everybody knows what we were up against for finishing that. So that will be done, and that will be done in the next few weeks as well. The rest of the stuff with starting before hours and the rest, everything is date stamped, time stamped. We have cameras that are out throughout the whole pit. Our hours are from 7 to 5, and we do that without question. As well as working on Saturdays, there has been categorically no work on Saturdays. There was one day that the scalers were brought in. They hand scaled as per the mines. And in order to do that, I had to have permission from the mines in writing in order to do that, which was granted because of the severity of the work that needed to be done at the time. So that's basically all I can state on that. The rest of the statements that were made, basically, I don't know where they got that information from as well. It's unfounded in my eyes. So that's all I can state. That's be a statement for myself.
Okay. And I guess safe to say that it's the right of and indeed the privilege of the owners living in the area to make complaints or to send notices or ask questions to the local governing bodies, whether it be the province, whether it be the city, or whoever the case may be, to make sure that that they're watching you, making sure you're following the rules.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we are working in a mine extraction area. We came in, bought the property at that point in time, knowing fully well that it was a gravel extraction area as well from the city of Abbotsford.
Thanks, Brent. Anybody else have anything to say to the group before we end the webinar? No? Okay. I want to thank you. Thanks. Heidi passes on. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to thank you as panelists for being here, taking time out. Ian, you took 2.5 hours and you didn't even get to speak. What a shame. What a shame. Same with Tom. City of Abbotsford, thank you for being here and being a part of this and watching the events. The public, all the public that was here, thank you for taking the time. Your concerns were well noted. Your concerns are of interest to MountainSide, I know. That's why they asked us to moderate this. This is an important process, and I want to thank everyone for being a part of it. As Ben, if you want to put that screen up one more time, just as we exit, just leave that up until we end the webinar. But I just want to thank everybody for taking the time. I'm going to mute the line, and we will be in touch with you all very soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
You know.
Oh. Brett, you have to go through that every time?
Every time. Oh, this is nothing compared to what